Everybody says that everything about this case is politically motivated. First, that the charges against Strauss-Kahn were politically motivated, and now that there's damaging information about the accuser coming out, that's politically motivated. I don't know of any politics involved in what I was writing about.
So,
I just think it was a straight-ahead criminal investigation, and they found out what they had to turn over to the defense about the accuser's credibility.
And you got this information when? This is coming out, your article came out just before today's surprise hearing, but when did you get this information?
Just before today's surprise hearing. As soon as I heard about it and verified it, I put it on our website. It was on our website at around 9:15 last night.
And who can you tell us who gave you this information, where you got it from?
Sure. The article says that it came from two well-placed law enforcement officials.
Thank you. Doug, I think you had a question?
Well, I was just going to ask you, Jim, whether, in your opinion, I mean, where does this leave the case right now? Essentially, it's in abeyance technically because the prosecution hasn't dismissed the charges, but so technically it still goes on.
Yes, and this is pretty typical of cases that are going to be dismissed, that they first relax the bail requirements, and then after further investigation, the defense will come in and make a motion to dismiss, and the prosecution, I expect, will not oppose that motion, and the judge will grant it.
And so, I mean, this story is still breaking. We're still waiting to see where it's going to go next. We've been talking about how the French media have seized upon this story. How do you think the American media differed on the way that they've been treating this case?
Well, I can't say how they differed because I really haven't been following both the French and the American media on this. The case has had an unusual dynamic, and that's it has an unusual dynamic on many levels, but one, of course, because of Strauss-Kahn's prominence, but also because of the circumstances and timing in which the charges arose and then now have unraveled. There's some technical reasons in the American criminal proceedings, and particularly in New York, where someone who is in jail must be indicted. That's the preliminary finding that there's a reason to go forward with the trial. The indictment must take place within about a week of that person being in jail. If Mr. Strauss-Kahn was not in jail, if he had been let out on bail earlier, they would not have had that time pressure. But because he was inside Rikers Island, they had to proceed to an indictment quickly. Otherwise, the entire case would have been dropped. So the pressure of time at the outset made the thorough background investigation that subsequently took place impossible. So once they got to digging into the accuser's background and found these credibility issues that are now surfacing, they then disclosed them to Strauss-Kahn's lawyers, and that's where we are today. Because of these, it's a kind of a technical timing issue that drove a lot of the events here. And I realize that's not satisfying to people who have a lot of theories about political conspiracies and things, but that's just ordinary business in the courts in New York, is that there are these deadlines. Things have to happen by a certain date, and sometimes those deadlines are so pressing that they don't allow for a thorough investigation until after the deadline has been met.
So that could explain the surprise element of today's hearing, but that doesn't really explain how we've gone from one extreme to the other in this case and in the way it's treated in the media. We've heard the lawyer for Dominique Strauss-Kahn saying, hold your judgment, and being pretty harsh on the press.
What can I tell you? I mean, people wrote what they wrote. I only speak for myself. I don't speak for the American media. I speak for what I write and my colleagues write. And I think we've tried to report the case very fairly. We've been attentive to what Mr. Brofman, who represents Strauss-Kahn, has had to say, and his statements have received a lot of attention. In fact, there was, I think, a front-page story a couple of days ago in the Times about videotape of Strauss-Kahn having a fairly relaxed lunch immediately after this encounter that raised questions about whether he truly was in the kind of panic that was initially ascribed to him after the encounter. So, people try to get to the bottom of things as best they can, and I think there's been a lot of excess in the press, a lot of sniping and crude remarks that clearly have no place in a civilized discourse, but in a free country and free speech, there are going to be crude remarks.